There's a moment that catches almost everyone off guard. It usually happens quietly, not during some major medical emergency, not in a hospital, not after a dramatic diagnosis. It happens in the middle of an ordinary day. Maybe you reach for a grocery bag and realize it suddenly feels heavier than it used to. Maybe you stand up too quickly and the room shifts beneath you for a second. Maybe you miss a step on the stairs and feel your heart race because, for the first time in your life, you genuinely thought you might fall. And in that moment, a thought slips into your mind that's difficult to admit out loud. Something is changing. Most people ignore that moment. They tell themselves they're just tired. They laugh it off. They say, well, getting older is part of life. And yes, aging is natural, but what most people never understand is this. Growing older does not automatically mean becoming fragile. Losing your confidence, losing your strength, losing your independence, those things don't happen overnight. They happen gradually, quietly, invisibly. And by the time most people realize what's happening, they're already struggling to get it back. I remember meeting a man named Walter a few years ago. Walter was 74 years old, sharp-minded, funny, proud, and deeply independent. He had spent most of his life taking care of everyone else. He raised 3 children, worked over 40 years, paid off his home, and believed retirement would finally be the season where he could enjoy life on his own terms. And for a while, he did. He traveled with his wife, played with his grandchildren, worked in his garden every morning, took long walks after dinner. Then little things started happening. At first, they didn't seem important. He stopped taking the stairs because his knees felt a little stiff. He avoided driving at night because headlights seemed harder to manage. He started reaching for furniture while walking through the house just for stability. His family noticed before he did. His daughter told me later, Dad used to move through life with confidence. Then one day it looked like he was trying not to fall every time he walked. That's how these changes begin. Not dramatically, subtly. Your body whispers before it screams. And the truth is, after age 70, there are specific physical changes that happen inside nearly every human body, whether we're ready for them or not. The problem is that most people never learn what those changes are until they're already losing mobility, confidence, and freedom. Today, I want to change that. Because if you understand what's happening inside your body, you can respond early. You can train differently, move differently, protect your independence, and possibly add years of quality life to your future. This is not about fear. It's about awareness. And more importantly, it's about realizing that your body still responds to effort, even in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. I've seen people in their late 70s rebuild strength they thought was gone forever. I've seen 80-year-olds improve balance dramatically. I've seen seniors go from frightened and unstable to strong and confident again. But it starts with understanding what's really happening. The first major change begins in a place most people never think about, deep inside your ears, your balance system. Most people assume balance comes from their legs. It doesn't. Your balance is controlled by an incredibly delicate system involving your inner ear, your eyes, your joints, and your brain working together every second of the day. Inside your inner ear are tiny fluid-filled structures that constantly tell your brain where your body is positioned in space. When you turn your head, lean forward, step backward, or simply stand still, that system keeps you upright without you ever thinking about it. When you're younger, it works beautifully. But after 70, changes begin. The sensors become less sensitive. Signals become slower. Your brain starts receiving less accurate information. And the frightening part is this. You often don't notice the decline until something happens. A stumble, a near fall, a sudden dizzy moment while getting out of bed. I once worked with a woman named Elaine. Elaine told me, I don't understand it. I can still walk perfectly fine, but sometimes I feel unsteady for no reason. So we did a simple test. I asked her to stand on one foot with her eyes open. She lasted 4 seconds. Then I asked her to close her eyes while standing normally. Within 2 seconds, her body started swaying dramatically. She looked shocked. I didn't realize it was that bad, she said quietly. But this is incredibly common. When vision disappears, your body is forced to rely on your internal balance system alone. And for many seniors, that system is already weakening. One major study found that older adults who struggled to maintain balance with their eyes closed had a dramatically higher risk of falling within the following 2 years. Not slightly higher, dramatically higher. And falls after 70 are not minor events. A fall can become the dividing line between independence and dependence, between living at home and needing care. That's why training balance is not optional, it's essential. The good news is the body adapts remarkably well when challenged consistently. One of the simplest exercises is also one of the most powerful. Stand on one foot while brushing your teeth. That's it. 10 seconds at first, then 20, then 30. It may sound too simple to matter, but what you're actually doing is forcing your brain and nervous system to communicate more efficiently again. You are retraining stability, and the brain loves repetition. The more you practice balance, the more your nervous system strengthens those pathways. Another major issue after 70 is reaction speed. This surprises many people because they still feel mentally sharp, but physical reaction time changes significantly with age. You notice it in subtle ways first. You drop something and can't catch it. You trip but can't recover quickly enough. You react to something a second too late while driving. A second doesn't sound dangerous until you realize how much can happen in 1 second. One gentleman I worked with described it perfectly. He said, "My mind still thinks young, my body just answers slower." That sentence stayed with me because it's true for so many people. The nervous system ages just like muscles and bones do. Signals travel more slowly. Coordination becomes less precise. Your muscles don't react as instantly as they once did. And unfortunately, this delay becomes incredibly dangerous during moments where balance is lost. Young adults often catch themselves automatically. Older adults frequently cannot respond fast enough. But again, this doesn't mean you're powerless. The nervous system remains trainable. Activities that challenge coordination and quick movement can improve reaction ability significantly. Simple exercises help more than people realize. Tossing a tennis ball against a wall and catching it, practicing quick stepping drills. Even certain video games have shown measurable improvements in reaction speed among seniors. The key is stimulation. Your nervous system adapts to demand. If you stop challenging it, it declines faster. And that brings us to one of the most devastating physical changes of all. Muscle loss. This is the silent thief of independence. After age 50, adults naturally begin losing muscle mass every single year. But after 70, the process accelerates dramatically. And here's what makes muscle loss so dangerous. Most people don't notice it until everyday tasks suddenly become difficult. Standing from a chair, carrying laundry, climbing stairs, opening jars, getting off the floor. Tasks that once felt effortless suddenly require concentration and strain. One woman told me she first noticed it while carrying groceries inside. She had always brought every bag in during one trip. Then one day, halfway across the driveway, she had to stop and rest. She stood there staring at those grocery bags, thinking, when did this become hard? That's how muscle loss introduces itself, quietly, not as weakness at first, but as effort. The scientific term for this is sarcopenia, but you don't need to remember the word to understand the impact. Muscles are what keep you independent. They protect your joints, support your balance, help you recover from slips, keep you mobile. Without strength, everything becomes harder. And eventually, fear begins replacing confidence. This is where many seniors unknowingly enter a dangerous cycle. They feel weaker, so they move less, but moving less causes even more muscle loss, which creates even more weakness. And over time, the body deteriorates rapidly. I've seen people age 10 years physically in just 2 years because they became sedentary after retirement. But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen 78-year-olds become stronger than they were at 68 simply because they started resistance training consistently. One man began exercising with resistance bands at 81 years old. At first, he struggled to stand from a chair without using his hands. 6 months later, he was walking 2 miles every morning. His daughter told me, with tears in her eyes, "I got my father back." That's the power of strength training. And no, you do not need a gym. You do not need heavy weights. You do not need intense workouts. You need consistency, chair squats, resistance bands, light dumbbells, wall push-ups, step-ups. Small movements repeated consistently change lives. Muscle responds to challenge at nearly every age. That's what people need to understand. Your body is not finished adapting simply because you got older. Now, there's another issue that often turns a simple fall into a life-changing tragedy: bone loss. This one is especially dangerous because you cannot feel it happening. Bones gradually lose density with age. They become thinner, more fragile, more porous, and many people discover they have severe bone weakness only after a fracture occurs. A hip fracture after 70 can completely change someone's future. Recovery becomes difficult. Mobility decreases, complications increase, and sadly, many older adults never fully regain their previous independence after a serious fracture. I remember a woman named June. June had always been active, healthy, energetic. Then, one rainy morning, she slipped stepping off a curb. The fall itself didn't even seem severe, but her hip fractured instantly. Everything changed after that. Rehabilitation was exhausting. Walking became painful. Confidence disappeared. She told me later, "I used to walk without thinking. Now every step feels like a risk." That sentence captures what so many seniors experience after a major fall. Not just physical pain, fear. And fear changes how people live. They stop going out, stop exercising, stop socializing. Life becomes smaller. That's why protecting bone health matters so deeply. Strength training helps bones too. So does adequate protein, vitamin D, calcium, walking outdoors. Bones strengthen when the body receives signals that strength is required. The human body is incredibly adaptive. But perhaps one of the least discussed changes after 70 involves something called proprioception. Most people have never heard the word, but it may be one of the most important systems in your entire body. Proprioception is your body's awareness of itself in space. It's what allows you to walk without staring at your feet constantly. It's how you know where your arms and legs are without looking. When proprioception weakens, your brain becomes less accurate at judging movement and position, and that's when strange falls begin happening. People trip over nothing, miss steps, misjudge curbs, catch their foot unexpectedly. They often blame clumsiness, but it's neurological. Your internal map of your body becomes less precise. One of the best ways to improve this is through intentional balance movement, heel-to-toe walking, standing on unstable surfaces safely, single leg exercises, Tai Chi. In fact, Tai Chi has shown remarkable benefits for reducing falls among older adults because it trains slow, controlled body awareness. And perhaps most importantly, it rebuilds confidence, because confidence matters more than most people realize. Fear of falling often becomes a self-fulfilling problem. When people become afraid, they stiffen, they shuffle, they move rigidly. But rigid movement is unstable movement. Confident movement is fluid, adaptive, natural. I once worked with a retired teacher who had fallen once in her kitchen. Minor injury, nothing serious. But emotionally, it changed her completely. She became terrified of falling again. Within months, her walking became hesitant and awkward. Ironically, she became more unstable after the fear began. We spent months rebuilding confidence slowly, simple movements, controlled exercises, gentle walking practice. Eventually, she smiled at me and said, I stopped thinking about falling. That's when I knew she was improving, because the goal isn't just stronger muscles, it's freedom. Freedom to walk confidently, travel confidently, live confidently. And here's the most important thing I want you to understand today: aging is inevitable, fragility is not. Yes, your body changes, but decline is not purely determined by age, it's determined by response. The body you have 10 years from now depends heavily on what you do with it today. Movement matters, strength matters, balance matters, confidence matters. And the earlier you begin protecting those things, the greater your future becomes. Most people wait too long. They wait until they've already lost strength, already fallen, already become fearful. Don't wait for a crisis to start caring for your future body, because independence is not lost all at once. It's lost one ignored warning sign at a time and regained one intentional habit at a time. There's another reality about aging that almost nobody talks about honestly. The body doesn't just become weaker with age, it becomes less forgiving. When you're younger, you can spend weeks inactive and recover quickly. You can trip, fall, strain something, and bounce back without much thought. But after 70, recovery changes. A few days in bed can weaken muscles dramatically. One injury can trigger months of reduced mobility. One frightening experience can alter your confidence for years. And this is exactly why protecting mobility becomes one of the most important investments of your entire life. Not money, not property, not possessions, mobility. Because the moment you lose the ability to move freely, life changes in ways most people never imagine until it happens to them. I remember visiting a rehabilitation center several years ago. There was a man sitting near the window watching people walk outside. He looked healthy at first glance. Strong shoulders, bright eyes, clear mind. We started talking, and eventually he said something I've never forgotten. I never thought the hardest part would be needing help for small things. That sentence hit me deeply, not because he was bitter, but because he sounded heartbroken. He told me he used to hike every weekend, loved working on his truck, loved feeling useful. Then came one fall, just one, a fractured pelvis, months of reduced movement, muscle loss, fear, and suddenly the life he recognized disappeared. He said, "You don't realize how precious independence is until someone has to help you put your socks on." That's the emotional side of aging nobody prepares people for. The physical losses are difficult, but the emotional losses can feel even heavier. The feeling of becoming dependent, the embarrassment of needing assistance, the fear of becoming a burden. Many seniors never say these things aloud, but they feel them deeply. And that's why what we're talking about today matters so much. This isn't vanity. It isn't about trying to stay young. It's about protecting dignity, the ability to get up from your own chair, cook your own meals, walk through your own home confidently, carry your own groceries, travel if you want to, live on your terms. That is priceless. And one of the biggest threats to that independence after 70 is inactivity. Retirement changes routines dramatically. People move less without realizing it. Think about how much movement work once provided naturally: walking to the car, walking through offices, using stairs, running errands, maintaining schedules. Then retirement comes. Days become quieter, slower, more sedentary. Hours pass sitting in recliners, watching television, scrolling phones, or simply resting. And while rest is important, too much inactivity becomes dangerous surprisingly fast. The body is designed for movement. When movement disappears, decline accelerates. Muscles weaken, joints stiffen, balance deteriorates, circulation slows, energy drops, confidence shrinks, and then something subtle happens psychologically. People begin identifying as old. That identity becomes dangerous because once someone believes decline is unavoidable, they stop fighting against it. They stop challenging themselves, stop trying new things, stop moving with purpose, and the body responds accordingly. But I've seen something completely different happen in people who refuse to surrender to that mindset. I knew a woman named Carol who started strength training at 79 years old, not because she wanted to look younger, because she wanted to keep gardening. That was her goal. Not a six-pack, not extreme fitness, not impressing anyone. She simply wanted enough strength to kneel in the dirt and stand back up without assistance. That's what motivated her. And honestly, that's one of the healthiest motivations I've ever heard. Within months, Carol became noticeably stronger. Her posture improved, her walking improved, even her mood changed. She smiled more. Why? Because strength changes more than the body. It changes how people feel emotionally. Confidence returns, hope returns, purpose returns. And purpose is deeply connected to physical health in aging adults. People who stop feeling useful often stop taking care of themselves. But people with purpose keep moving. They wake up with intention. They challenge themselves. They stay engaged with life. One of the most fascinating studies on aging found that older adults with a strong sense of purpose lived significantly longer and maintained better mobility compared to those who felt disconnected or hopeless. That makes sense when you think about it. When people feel life still needs them, they keep showing up for life, and movement becomes part of that. Now let's talk about something else that quietly changes after 70, walking patterns. This is something physical therapists notice immediately. Older adults often begin shortening their steps. They shuffle slightly, move more cautiously, keep their feet closer to the ground. Again, this usually begins unconsciously. The brain senses instability and adapts by making movement more cautious. But over time, this creates its own problems. Shuffling increases fall risk. Shorter steps reduce mobility efficiency. The body becomes less fluid and coordinated. One exercise I often recommend is surprisingly simple. Practice deliberate walking, not rushed walking, not distracted walking, intentional walking. Lift the feet slightly higher, lengthen the stride naturally, swing the arms, maintain upright posture. Walking is one of the most neurologically complex things humans do. It involves coordination between muscles, joints, balance systems, vision, and the brain simultaneously. That's why walking practice matters, especially as people age. And posture matters too. Many seniors gradually begin leaning forward without realizing it. The head moves ahead of the body, shoulders round, the spine compresses. Poor posture changes balance dramatically. It shifts the body's center of gravity and increases instability. But posture can improve, strengthening the upper back, stretching the chest, practicing standing tall. These small adjustments create enormous differences over time. I once worked with a retired mechanic who told me, "I didn't realize how bent over I'd become until I saw myself in a store window." That moment bothered him enough that he committed to posture exercises consistently. Months later, he looked taller, walked taller, felt younger emotionally, because posture affects psychology too. When people stand taller, they often feel stronger internally. Another issue many seniors face is reduced foot strength. People rarely think about feet until something hurts. But your feet are your foundation. Weak feet create unstable walking, poor balance, reduced mobility, and modern footwear sometimes makes the problem worse. Shoes that are overly cushioned can weaken the tiny stabilizing muscles in the feet over time. Simple exercises help tremendously. Toe raises, heel raises, walking barefoot safely indoors, picking up small objects with the toes, strengthening the feet improves stability all the way up the body. Now let's discuss something incredibly important that families often miss: fatigue. Persistent fatigue after 70 is not always normal aging. Sometimes it's reduced activity creating reduced energy. This surprises many people. You would think conserving energy by resting more would create more energy. Often the opposite happens. Movement creates energy. Circulation improves, mood improves, muscles activate, the brain becomes more alert. That's why many seniors actually feel more energetic after beginning exercise programs, even though they initially feared exercise would exhaust them. The human body thrives on use, and the brain does too. Cognitive decline and physical decline are deeply connected. Movement stimulates the brain. Balance exercises stimulate the brain. Coordination exercises stimulate the brain. One neurologist described movement as fertilizer for the aging brain. I love that description because it's true. Every time you challenge balance, learn a new movement, practice coordination, your brain builds and strengthens connections. That's one reason dance classes can be incredibly beneficial for older adults. They combine rhythm, memory, coordination, movement, and social interaction all at once. And social connection matters enormously in aging. Isolation accelerates decline. Loneliness affects physical health more than many people realize. People who become isolated often move less, eat worse, sleep worse, and lose motivation. Community matters, friendship matters, purpose matters. I've seen seniors transform simply by joining walking groups or exercise classes, not just physically. Emotionally, they laugh more, show up consistently, feel accountable, feel connected. Humans were never meant to age alone, and perhaps one of the most dangerous things society teaches older adults is that slowing down completely is the goal. It isn't. Rest when needed, yes. But stopping completely? That's where problems begin. Your body constantly asks one question: do we still need this function? If you stop challenging strength, the body reduces muscle. If you stop challenging balance, balance declines. If you stop challenging coordination, coordination weakens. The body adapts to demand at every age. That's why movement after 70 must become intentional, not extreme, intentional. And consistency beats intensity every single time. A simple routine practiced daily changes more lives than aggressive workouts done inconsistently. 10 minutes of balance work daily matters. Walking daily matters. Strength exercises several times a week matter. Small actions compound over years. And here's something deeply hopeful. Improvement can happen surprisingly fast. I've seen balance improve in weeks, strength improve in months, confidence improve almost immediately. Because confidence grows every time someone proves to themselves, I can still do this. That moment matters. The moment someone stands from a chair more easily, walks farther than last month, recovers balance without panic. Those victories rebuild identity, and identity matters tremendously. People who see themselves as capable behave differently. They move differently, carry themselves differently, engage with life differently. I once asked a 92-year-old woman what she believed kept her active for so long. Her answer was beautiful. She said, "I never gave myself permission to become fragile." Think about that. Not denial, not pretending she wasn't aging, but refusing to surrender completely to decline. That mindset changed how she lived every day. She walked daily, stayed curious, stayed engaged, stayed moving. And movement truly is medicine for aging, not because it prevents aging completely, but because it slows unnecessary decline dramatically. The body is remarkably resilient when given the opportunity, even in later decades of life, especially in later decades of life, because every improvement matters more. At 25, getting stronger is exciting. At 75, getting stronger can change your future. That's the difference. And I want you to understand something very clearly right now. If you've already become weaker, less steady, more fearful, that does not mean your story is over. It means your body is asking for attention. That's all. The human body responds amazingly to care and challenge, even after years of neglect. Start small. That's how transformation begins. Not with perfection, not with massive changes, with consistency. One walk, one exercise, one decision repeated daily. And over time, those tiny decisions rebuild a life. One of the greatest mistakes people make about aging is assuming decline happens suddenly. It doesn't. Most of the time, decline happens through accumulation, tiny losses, tiny compromises, tiny habits repeated quietly over years. And because those changes happen gradually, people adapt to them without realizing how much they've lost. A person stops taking walks because their knees ache a little. Then they lose endurance. Then they avoid stairs. Then balance weakens. Then confidence disappears. Not all at once, step by step. And unfortunately, the reverse is also true. Recovery happens step by step too. That's why patience becomes incredibly important after 70. Your body still adapts, still heals, still strengthens, but it responds better to consistency than urgency. Many older adults become discouraged because they expect instant change. They exercise for a week and think, well, I still feel weak. But the body isn't a machine, it's a living system, and living systems respond gradually. Think about how long it took weakness to develop. Years. So rebuilding strength, mobility, and confidence takes time too. But every small effort matters more than you realize. I remember a gentleman named Richard who started walking at age 82 after years of inactivity. The first day, he walked to the mailbox and back. That was it. He was exhausted afterward. A younger person might look at that and think it's insignificant. It wasn't insignificant. It was the beginning of reclaiming his life. 2 weeks later, he walked to the corner. A month later, around the block. 6 months later, he was walking through the park every morning. His son told me, it's like my father came back emotionally too, because movement affects far more than muscles. It affects identity, mood, motivation, self-respect. People feel different when they feel capable, and capability creates momentum. That's why celebrating small victories matters so much. Standing from a chair without using your hands, that matters. Walking upstairs more confidently, that matters. Feeling steadier while getting dressed, that matters. These are not small things. These are the foundations of independent living. And independence is one of the deepest human needs we have. No one wants to feel helpless. No one wants to depend entirely on others for basic tasks. That fear exists quietly in many older adults, even when they never say it aloud. But here's the hopeful truth. Many of the physical changes associated with aging can be slowed dramatically through intentional action, not perfectly prevented, but significantly improved. And one of the most powerful things older adults can do is stop underestimating what their bodies are still capable of learning, because learning doesn't stop at 70. Adaptation doesn't stop at 80. Progress doesn't stop at 90. The body still listens. You simply have to give it the right signals. Movement says, we still need strength. Balance practice says, we still need coordination. Walking says, we still need endurance. Every healthy action sends instructions to the body, and the body responds accordingly. That's why inactivity becomes so dangerous, because inactivity tells the body the opposite. We don't need this muscle anymore. We don't need this balance anymore. We don't need this stamina anymore. The body adapts downward just as quickly as it adapts upward. And sadly, many people don't realize how quickly physical decline can accelerate after periods of inactivity. A hospital stay, an illness, an injury, even 2 weeks of reduced movement can create noticeable weakness in older adults. That's why recovery after setbacks becomes so important. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is returning to movement as soon as safely possible. Now, there's something else that deserves attention: pride. Sometimes pride prevents older adults from admitting they need to work on balance or strength. They don't want to feel old, don't want to appear vulnerable. So instead of training proactively, they wait until something serious happens. But prevention is always easier than recovery, always. Building strength before a fall matters more than rebuilding after a fracture. Improving balance before instability becomes severe matters enormously. One of the wisest things a person can do is prepare early instead of reacting late. And honestly, this mindset applies far beyond physical health. It applies to aging itself. The people who age best are usually not the ones pretending they're still 25. They're the ones who adapt intelligently. They accept that the body changes, then they respond intentionally. That's wisdom, and wisdom matters in aging. You may not move exactly like you did at 30. That's okay. The goal isn't youth. The goal is capability. There's a huge difference. Capability means being able to participate in your life fully, to travel, play with grandchildren, cook dinner, walk through stores confidently, live independently. That's what truly matters. And often, the people who maintain those abilities longest are the ones doing very ordinary things consistently. Walking daily, strength training twice a week, stretching, sleeping properly, staying socially connected, eating enough protein, maintaining purpose. Nothing flashy, just disciplined consistency. One thing I encourage every older adult to do is stop speaking about themselves as though decline is guaranteed. Words matter. The brain listens. If someone constantly says, "I'm just old," they begin behaving like someone powerless. But when someone says, "I'm working on getting stronger," their mindset changes completely. Language shapes identity. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. I once knew a man in his late 80s who corrected people every time they called him elderly. He would smile and say, "No, I'm experienced." And honestly, that attitude affected how he lived. He stayed active, curious, engaged, not because he denied aging, but because he refused to reduce himself to it. That distinction matters deeply. Aging should never erase identity. You are still yourself, still capable of growth, still capable of contribution, still capable of joy. And joy matters tremendously in healthy aging. Laughter reduces stress, connection improves mental health, purpose improves resilience. People often focus only on physical exercise while ignoring emotional health completely. But emotional vitality influences physical vitality more than most realize. People who feel hopeful often move more, care more, try harder. Hope itself becomes fuel. That's why discouragement can become dangerous. Once people believe improvement is impossible, they stop trying. And stopping is the real threat, not age itself. Stopping movement, stopping effort, stopping engagement with life. As long as someone continues participating actively in life, the body and mind continue receiving signals to adapt. That's powerful. Now, I want to speak directly to anyone listening who feels like they've already fallen behind. Maybe you already feel weak. Maybe your balance scares you. Maybe stairs feel difficult now. Maybe you've already experienced a fall. Please hear this clearly. Your current condition is not necessarily your final condition. Improvement remains possible. Maybe not overnight, maybe not perfectly, but possible. The body changes when behavior changes. That's biology. And some of the most inspiring transformations I've witnessed happened in people who started very late. A woman beginning strength training at 84, a man rebuilding balance after a serious fall at 79, a retired couple beginning daily walks after decades of inactivity. Progress is still progress regardless of age, and every improvement expands life. Even modest improvements matter enormously. A little more strength means easier movement. A little better balance means lower fall risk. A little more endurance means more freedom. These gains compound over time. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. When people regain physical confidence, they often regain emotional confidence too. They start saying yes to life again. Yes to outings. Yes to travel. Yes to experiences. Yes to participation. That's what healthy aging is truly about. Not merely surviving longer, living fully longer, maintaining the ability to engage with the people and experiences you love. That's worth fighting for. And the fight begins with simple decisions repeated consistently. A walk tomorrow morning, a few balance exercises before breakfast, standing taller, moving more intentionally, choosing effort instead of surrender. Those decisions seem small in the moment, but over years, they shape everything. I want you to remember something very important. Your body is listening to you every single day. Every movement tells it to stay capable. Every challenge tells it to stay adaptive. Every healthy habit tells it life is still being lived fully. And your body responds, maybe not as quickly as it once did, maybe not as effortlessly, but it responds. That means hope remains, no matter your age, no matter your starting point, no matter how discouraged you may feel right now. The future version of you is being shaped by the choices you make today. So start now, not next month, not after a health scare, not after a fall. Now, walk more, strengthen your legs, train your balance, protect your bones, challenge your brain, stay connected to people, stay connected to purpose, and most importantly, do not quietly surrender years of your life before you have to, because growing older is a privilege, but staying capable while growing older, that's a responsibility, one worth fighting for every single day.